How would you like a 15% discount to my daily email, the stack of stuff, the show notes, discounts to the conference, all of that? All you need to do is text the word show to 33777. You'll get the annual subscription with a 15% discount to my daily email. You'll get the stack of stuff, the links to the show notes, discounts to the conference, and so much more. All you have to do is text the word show, S-H-O-W, to 33777. Text show to 33777.
Welcome to the Eric Erickson Show podcast, Hour 3.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome. It is Eric Erickson here across the United States of America. Delighted to have you with me. The full number, 877-973-7425. Well, to begin this hour, we need to talk about something. I'll try not to make it awkward. It's about that S word, 3 letters. Starts with an S, ends with an X. Middle letter is E. Yeah, that one. Because progressives don't seem to be doing a lot of it. And to the extent that they are procreating, they're killing their offspring with abortions. So the other day I was talking about this, that conservatives intend to be happier than progressives. Conservatives who go to church are the longest lived Americans. Now, I'm not making that up, by the way. This is data that blows everyone's mind when you tell them about it, but it's actually been well researched by secular academics across the world. Lots of studies published on it that people who go to church and who believe that the Bible is the Word of God tend to be more conservative. They also live longer. It turns out if you put your faith in a higher power and you surround yourself with a community of believers, you live longer. You take joy in Jesus, you're going to live longer than someone who is driven to despair by a secular world. But also, birth rates are falling around the world. But the conservative reproductive rate is higher than the progressive reproductive rate. There's still, so the 2.4 is the number. That's the birth rate number, and I realize it's kind of dumb to talk about your 2.4 kids. But the 2.4 is the match rate for reproduction. Number of people born equals the number of people dying. 2.4 is where you want to be, or higher. In the developed world, conservative birth rate is at 2. The progressive birth rate is at 1.6. Globally, by the way, or I'm sorry, in the United States, it's at 2.4 conservatives. For progressives, it is about 1.6. In other words, conservatives are giving birth at a rate that displaces population, and progressives give birth at a rate that declines population. In other words, more conservative families are giving birth and having larger families than progressives. And I see this in my own life, in my church community, and among my friends. The number of friends I have who have multiple children who are conservative is disproportionately higher than the number of friends I have who are progressive and have no kids or just a single kid. Maybe 2 if they're pushing it, but certainly no talk of more than 2. And, of course, with progressives as well, there's this entire baggage as well that should we bring more people into this world that's dying? Now, you know, as an aside here, particularly if you're in church, a Bible-believing church, you take seriously God saying be fruitful and multiply. If you're a Catholic, if you are an ardent, true believing Catholic, you probably come from a large family. I got a buddy of mine who he's got 4 brothers and sisters. And his middle brother got married 5 years ago and now has 3 kids. His wife has been pregnant for most of their marriage. And by the way, they're not miserable. They're super happy. They love it. They're kind of miserable right now because they got a bunch of little rugrats running around and they can't get any sleep. But they love it. They believe it's their obligation. Be fruitful and multiply. Progressives, however, they're upset about global warming, and they rot their children with anxieties over the state of the planet. I mean, we've got we're all dead now. I don't know if you know this or not, but you're actually dead right now. They told us 10 years ago we had 10 years to live, and then we were all going to die because of global warming. I mean, tax cuts killed us, net neutrality killed us. Modifying Obamacare killed us, and global warming killed us. We are all like dead multiple times over. Like we keep being dug up and killed again by global warming. It's just wild that you don't even realize you're dead. But the left told us that we're all going to die because of global warming. You've got these neurologically imbalanced kids out there on the left these days. And by the way, there's something demonic about it too. When you have all these people who believe their kids are trans and they're going to pump them full of drugs that ultimately sterilize them. And you've got the progressive pediatricians out there saying, oh no, these drugs, they don't cause lasting harm. And then the kid decides, I actually don't want to be the dude. I want to go back to being a girl. They can't have kids. Or the guy decides he wants to be a girl and transitions back and says, thank goodness I didn't chop it off, but it doesn't work anymore because you've been sterilized. It is remarkable what progressives are doing to themselves. That they and again, I read you the Romans 1, instead of worshiping the Creator, they worship creation, and they are obsessed with saving the planet. Saving the planet at the expense of humanity is ultimately what it boils down to. Side note, you know what's going to happen too? So conservatives are replenishing, are at a birth rate replenishment level. Now, that does not mean your kid is going to be conservative. I was talking to a very famous theologian. Well, I don't mind telling you. Tim Keller. I was talking to Tim Keller before he died. And I produced a pilot series of me in conversation with people, particularly people of faith, about life and raising kids and stuff. And I wanted to interview Tim and Kathy Keller. And I emailed Tim, and Tim said, well, talk to Kathy, because I wanted Kathy to be in the interview as well. And Kathy wrote me back. She says, Tim has never, nor will Tim ever, preach or write books on how to raise your kids. And we're very sorry. Thank you for thinking of us. But on this topic, both of us have made decisions. We're not going to talk about this topic. But wow, I mean, Tim Keller writes books about all these theological topics. And he doesn't want to write a book about raising your kids. And Tim and I were talking later about it. He says, yeah, I mean, all of our friends who raise kids and had them in church every week, and a lot of them are atheists now. And our kids, says, I'm completely committed to Reformed theology because of raising kids. Like, I'm a preacher. Our kids, I think some of them grew up and they had problems growing up, and they all came to the Lord. And some of our friends who were godly people and raised their kids in the church and did all the stuff you're supposed to do, all their kids are atheists or super liberal. He says, this is a God thing. It's not a me thing. I can't write a book about it. It's such a God thing. I was very impressed with it. In fact, somebody told me one of his sons, who will go nameless, who I know, went off to university, and people were like, oh my gosh, it's Tim Keller's son. Turned out, surprise, he's an atheist, or at least very agnostic, and ultimately came to know the Lord in college. Tim Keller's son. Those of you who don't know Tim Keller is the most famous Protestant theologian of the late 20th, early 21st century. Tim Keller was exceedingly famous. Tim Keller was not a dear friend of mine, but he was a friend. We had a wonderful relationship. And I miss him dearly, and occasionally listen to one of his podcasts. You can get his Gospel for Life podcast. It's one of the few podcasts I listen to, and it's Tim's sermons. They go way back to the late 1990s, and every single one of them is so good. Every single one of them. And I have on more than one occasion fired off a text, and it just kills me when the bubble goes green. It's like, oh, you're not there. But yeah, I mean, it's this is the thing. The way that conservatives are misinterpreting this, and this gets to this whole tangent on Tim, is just because you're a conservative and you have kids does not mean your kid is going to be conservative. But there's a better chance of your child being conservative if you as a conservative have a kid than a progressive has of producing a progressive when all the progressives, they're not having kids. They're not procreating. And progressives are disproportionately having abortions. So to the extent they procreate, they kill the kid instead of actually giving birth to the kid, and it limits the number of progressives on the planet. You know, ironically, who the most conservative people are and where this country is heading, and this will infuriate the progressives as much as it will infuriate the white nationalists out there. We're headed towards a country that is a group of predominantly Hispanic country music listening redneck conservatives who are the most highly reproducing people in this country. Protestant Hispanics who are conservatives. By the way, if you're a Hispanic person and you left the Catholic Church to Protestantism, you're really, really a winger. You are solidly conservative. And you're also the most likely to have large families, the most likely to be conservative, the most likely to have your kids become conservative. And y'all listen to country music and you drive big trucks. Y'all are my people. You got Taco Tuesday every day of the week. I love you so much. I do not understand the disdain for Hispanic people in this country by some on the right. I understand the disdain for illegal immigration, but my gosh, conservative Hispanic people are the greatest people on planet Earth. They have the best cooks in the house. They have large families. They drive giant trucks, and they're phenomenal. We don't talk enough about Hispanic moms cooking. Side note. Sorry. Get off on the tangents. I'm hungry and I miss Taco Tuesday, so I have Taco Thursday. But nonetheless, I digress. We're going to be a nation of Hispanic country music listening conservatives who go to a Protestant church because that's demographically where we're headed as a country. Now, demography is not destiny. I say that all the time. You can be a conservative. That was my tangent on Tim Keller. He's a world famous theologian who continues to be a bestseller despite having passed away a couple of years ago. And his kids went off to college. They all came to faith, but none of them went to college of the faith. And as he told me, like he and his wife didn't talk about it because a lot of their friends whose kids went off to college became progressive atheists. So you can't control it, but you have more control if you have the kids. And this is where things are going to head, because progressives are so dominant in culture. Right now, at least, progressives are dominant in culture. I can predict to you something that's going to happen. Not hard to make this prediction. Progressives who aren't having kids are going to get old, and they're not going to have a social support group. So you know what's going to happen? More demand for social service programs from government to take care of them. That's what's going to happen. And also the increasing use of euthanasia for them. As they get old, lonely, and bored, they decide to commit suicide, and they're going to want the government to pay for it. They're going to want active euthanasia programs from the government. That's where progressivism is going to head. We're seeing it in other countries. We're seeing it in some states in this country. We're going to see it nationalized as progressives decide there's no social support network for them. There's no point in going on. But that's a choice they made. We shouldn't subsidize the choice for them to kill themselves. I'm a profound opponent in assisted suicide, and I got to tell you, I have friends who have had loved ones decline and die, and they saw the process and thought, you know what, I think I don't want to put my family through that. And I got to tell you, it's a ministry to your family, and I don't mean this cruelly, for you to wither and die before their eyes instead of choosing when to opt out. It allows them to come to terms with your pending death. But for the left, their embrace of euthanasia doesn't have anything to do with, I've got a terminal disease, I don't want my family to suffer. It has to do with, I'm bored of life, time to go. because I don't have a social safety net. They're gonna try to profoundly change public policy, and conservatives are going to have to hold the line on this. It is a profound upending of our society for progressives to not be having kids. And by the way, it's not a bad thing. It definitely shows you the trend lines of where society is headed, and that's frankly back to God and getting the government out of our lives, and that's a good thing. Progressivism has not done the world a lot of good, and it's not doing progressives a lot of good. It's leaving them lonely and childless as they grow up. Hello there. Welcome. It is Eric Erickson here. The phone number, 877-973-7425, should you wish to be on the program. I'll take your phone calls here in a minute. This is a short segment. Here's a story you're not going to hear on your local news, but it's true. In Viterbo, Italy, last night, 2 Turkish men armed with machine guns planned to open fire on a crowd of 40,000 Catholic Christians who were gathered to celebrate the feast day of St. Rose. The men had already set up their weapons in a rented apartment looking out over the square. They were waiting for the procession to arrive so they could kill as many people as possible. The police, however, were tipped off, stormed the building, and stopped them. Islamic terrorists in Italy wanting to rain fire down on 40,000 Christians in a town square. Now, it would make the news if those people were killed. It should make the news that Islamic terrorism continues around the world, but the world is more focused on fake claims of genocide by Israel than actual violence and attempted violence by radical Islamists. Israel is not committing genocide in Gaza. There's a war on. Gaza started it. Israel is defending itself and trying to rescue its hostages. There's no war in Italy. And yet, 2 Islamic radicals tried to rain machine gun fire down on 40,000 Christians last night who were in a procession. And thankfully, the police stopped it, and you're not going to hear about it on your evening news. Americans for Prosperity wants you to take a step for freedom. They're trying to find 250,000 Americans who will take one step for freedom to make 250,000 steps for freedom. It is in time for the 250th anniversary of our country, the 250,000 Steps for Freedom Challenge by AFP. If you, me, and everybody else takes just one small step for freedom, the country takes a giant leap back towards the founders' vision for this country. They'd love to have you engaged in this process, in this program, and in this challenge. You can find out more at afpvolunteer.com. That's afpvolunteer.com. Sign up with Americans for Prosperity today. Commit yourself to the freedoms that our founders committed us to, those inalienable rights that the founders talked about that Tim Kaine doesn't know about, and advance this country's freedoms. Recommit ourselves to the founders' vision of the country. afpvolunteer.com. That's afpvolunteer.com. Hello, welcome. It is Eric Erickson here. The phone number is 877-973-7425. Let me go to Mike, who has been waiting patiently. Welcome to the show, Mike. How are you?
I'm doing great, Eric. Thank you for taking my call. I've done my part in reprocreation. I've got 3 kids, 11 grandkids, and 10 great-grands. But my question was back on the Constitution. What rights do these illegal immigrant criminals have under our citizens' Constitution?
They have the rights that you and I have.
You're kidding.
Nope. Now, they don't have the right to vote. You do have to be a citizen. But again, this goes back to the prior discussion. We as a country are founded on the idea of natural rights, and that the Constitution's job is to protect those natural rights. And those natural rights, because they come from God and not government, they apply universally, not just to us. There are certain created rights by the government that illegal aliens can't have. And take, for example, the Second Amendment. You have to be a U.S. citizen to buy a gun. But when it comes to the rights of a trial by jury, they get it. When it comes to free speech rights, they get it. When it comes to things like that, by and large, illegal aliens have the same due process rights that we have. And that, by the way, I use that language liberally because that's what the Supreme Court has held. They have the same due process rights as us. So if you come to this country as a legal alien, that is, you're not illegal, you've come in by permission of the government, but you're not a citizen, and you go stand and give a speech and say the United States must be destroyed, everyone must be killed, you can be deported for that. It's not a violation of your First Amendment right because you're here under the country, but it is the due process rights that you can't just round someone up and immediately deport them from the country. You got to be able to show they're an illegal alien. Now, here's where the left drags this out. If you came into the country as an illegal alien in the Biden administration, so you went to a checkpoint, they documented, we're going to let this person into the country, but they're an illegal alien. The Trump administration says we should be able to round you up and throw you out immediately because we've already documented, the government has, that you're an illegal alien. They are correct in this, and the Supreme Court has said they are correct in this. But what a number of lower court judges did is said, we got to have a hearing to decide whether or not they're an illegal alien. No, you don't have to do that. The Supreme Court said so, and that's common sense. They've already been defined by the Biden administration as an illegal alien. That got corrected, thankfully, by the Supreme Court, but that's genuinely it, because we as a nation, and again, this is worth saying, and Mike, thanks for that, and thanks for being patient with me. Let me go back and wrap this story around a little more, just so you have better context here. And Mike, bear with me. I'm going to go off on what sounds like a tangent, and it's not. The Trump administration is considering barring transgendered individuals from buying guns in this country because they believe, as I do, transgenderism is a mental illness, and the mentally ill are prohibited from owning a gun. They will ban transgendered individuals from owning guns. That's unconstitutional, and here's why. Before you get in a dander, before you they should be out of the mentally ill, just understand what the law says. Not you, not me, not Twitter, not Trump. What the law says. Red flag laws. One must be adjudged in a court proceeding to be mentally ill. If the government declares someone is mentally ill, and there's no hearing to assess their mental illness, well, think about when a Democrat becomes president. You believe in, like, God? You're crazy. Crazy people can't own guns. Sorry, Christians, you can't have guns anymore. Sometimes the rule of law is inconvenient. There's this national conservatism conference in D.C., and they're very aggrieved right now, despite seemingly winning. A lot of discontent with the Trump administration among some of his biggest fans there. And one of the things that they have said is, you can just do what you want. And a lot of the big complaints of this national conservatism movement is the proceduralism of conservatism. But you got to understand, the procedure oftentimes is there to protect you and your rights. So let's get back to transgendered people, mentally ill, can't own guns. Okay, I'm sympathetic to the issue, but you got to be judged in a court of law. Why? Because you're required to give people due process. Why are you required to give people due process? The Constitution. Why does the Constitution say it? Well, because the English Bill of Rights. It was a derivative of the English Bill of Rights. Why did the English Bill of Rights say it? Because the people who fought the English Revolution, the Glorious Revolution, where no one died, that's why it's the Glorious Revolution, they believed that our rights overwhelmingly come from God. And because our rights come from God, government cannot take those rights away without a process showing that that particular right they wish to take away should be taken away, not just from you for your own good, but for the good of society. That society should in some way be protected from you. Now, you can say illegal aliens don't deserve any rights when they come to this country. But if our rights come from God, does God exempt illegal aliens from those rights? Put it to you another way. Do the Chinese Christians in concentration camps in China have God-given rights? See, the problem with the Chinese government is that the Chinese government suppresses the God-given rights of people. And that's the issue here. If our rights, by and large, come from God, you got to go through a due process hearing by the state to deny you the right that comes from God. And that includes an illegal alien who is created in the likeness and image of God, who may have come into this country illegally, and as a result, our border matters and they should be easily deported. But also, generally, they get rights that you and I get, particularly the due process rights, because they're made in the likeness and image of God, not because they're here in the United States. Our country is wrapped around this idea, and Tim Kaine and progressives reject it. And the irony here is that Tim Kaine and progressives reject an idea that actually makes things safer in this country for people like groups of illegal aliens. They're willing to cut off their nose to spite their face because they don't like the idea of rights coming from God. They want those rights coming from government. It's kind of wild that progressives, they're so short term in their thinking, they can't see long term. If rights come from government, not God, well, that screws the illegal aliens that they like it and everybody else as well. Don't be upset with the fact that illegal aliens have certain rights when they come to this country too. Don't be upset with that fact because it makes our country not just unique but stronger than other countries. We can still deport them despite what the lower court judges say. But this is why in this country we have people who are willing to die to get here. No other country can say that. In no country are people willing to die to get there to become one of those people. Yeah, are we a nation of blood and soil? Yes, but we're also a nation that was founded on an idea and an ideal. We're the only nation founded on an idea. Other nations really are nations of territorial conquest of people who look alike. In this country, we're an amalgamation of people from all over the world who come here because they want to be Americans. The problem is not that. The problem is that progressives have over time decided that what it means to be American is bad and we should get rid of it and we should stop educating people about what it means to be an American. We have a diverse idea of what it means to be an American, but at the end of the day, it's this. All men are created equal and they are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights. Among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And that if you embrace those ideas and you wish to come here and work hard and dedicate yourself to those principles, you're as American as you or me. I know plenty of Hispanic immigrants who are more pro-America than a bunch of white liberals living on the Upper East Side of Manhattan. Those people, those Hispanic immigrants to this country are part of the American fabric. Chinese and Indians as well. We're a multi-ethnic nation. We're a multi-religious nation at this point. The question is, are we defined by what it means to be an American? And the left, this is where immigration is broken down. Immigration is not broken down because of different peoples from different countries coming to this country. Immigration has broken down because the left abhorred the idea of assimilation into a country that at the end of the day they hate. We've got to get back to assimilation and back to a country of immigrants who believe that all men are created equal. Opportunity, the end result is not equal. The opportunity at the beginning is equal. We all come out of the womb equal. We're not going to go into the grave equal. And the problem is that the left wants us to go into the grave equal, all of us poor, and can't understand that's not the vision of this country. Now, last call of the day. Daniel, you're going to be up last. Welcome. How are you?
Fine, sir. Thank you. I might have misheard you, but did you say you was a proponent of suicide in certain instances?
No.
And
no.
And if I heard you, what I heard was that just not for any little thing, but for certain times, it's easy on the family and stuff.
Oh, no. I oppose assisted suicide in all cases.
Oh, okay. Well, I misunderstood you there because if that was the case, I was wondering where in the Bible it said it's all right to take the life that God gave you.
That's exactly why, and I know what I was saying is I know people who are who they don't want their family to go through the trauma of dealing with fatal illnesses. They don't want their family to have to watch them decline or take care of them, or they don't want to go through the suffering. And I actually think that there is a ministry to be had in the suffering of those who have prolonged terminal illness. One, it gets your family to be prepared to embrace what is coming, as opposed to you setting the timeline arbitrarily of when you want to die, and your family may not be ready yet for you to die. But also, I think that you find God's mercies more greatly in those terrible things. I mean, we went to a funeral a couple of weeks ago of a friend who died of brain cancer, and it was a lot of long and grueling suffering for their family to go through it. And I know people who are sympathetic to the assisted suicide argument because of stuff like that. And I compassionately, lovingly have to disagree. I understand why. And I know there are those who would say I'm the cruel person for wanting someone to suffer. And I understand that. But I think God has a plan for everything and can make good out of tragedy. And we should not forestall that opportunity by ending someone's life sooner than the good Lord wills it. And so I have to dissent from this movement for assisted suicide in the country that people say it's compassion. I don't think it's compassion at all. I think it's actually evil masquerading as compassion and luring in the vulnerable and those suffering. It's wild to see the expansion of it. You know, in parts of Europe now where they've embraced assisted suicide, they're actually now beginning to expand the definitions for children. So kids, you know, it has been a common foundation in Western society that kids don't have volition until they're teenagers. And by volition, I mean kids don't really have the capacity to make good decisions for themselves. And that's why we hold their parents responsible for the decisions until they get to be teens. And now suddenly there are parts of Europe where like, oh, if a kid wants to commit suicide, we should let him commit suicide. I mean, think about the emotions of your kid. I mean, when they see their friends at a party tell them, and they want to end it all. That was the worst thing ever. And they have to grow up and mature and get through that. And now the courts are going to say, oh, yeah, we'll let you commit suicide. Your friend's at a party. You weren't invited. Clearly you shouldn't be around anyway. You're taking up oxygen. It's a horrible monstrosity hiding as compassion to embrace assisted suicide. It's a bad idea, and you can see in every country that has embraced it how it is slowly expanding into realms where it was never intended. Once you let that cat out of the bag, you're not going to put it back in. So, no, I am very much opposed to assisted suicide. This is wild to me. So, Bari Weiss was an opinion writer at the New York Times who was essentially pressured to leave. She wrote back during her resignation letter back in 2020 to the publisher, Dear AG, it's with sadness I write to tell you I'm resigning from the New York Times. I joined the paper with gratitude and optimism 3 years ago. It was hired with the goal of bringing in voices that would not otherwise appear in your pages, first-time writers, centrists, conservatives, and others who would not naturally think of the Times as their home. The reason for this effort was clear. The paper's failure to anticipate the outcome of the 2016 election meant it didn't have a firm grasp of the country it covers. Dean Baquette and others have admitted as much on various occasions. I was honored to be a part of the effort led by James Bennett. I'm proud of my work as a writer and an editor. But the lessons that ought to have followed the election, lessons about the importance of understanding other Americans, the necessity of resisting tribalism, and the centrality of the free exchange of ideas to a democratic society have not been learned. Instead, a new consensus has emerged in the press, but perhaps especially at this paper, that truth isn't a process of collective discovery, but an orthodoxy already known to an enlightened few whose job it is to inform everyone else. My own forays into wrongthink have made me the subject of constant bullying by colleagues who disagree with my views. They've called me a Nazi and a racist. I've learned to brush off comments about how I'm writing about the Jews again. Several colleagues perceived to be friendly with me were badgered by coworkers. My work and my character are openly demeaned on company-wide Slack channels where masthead editors regularly weigh in. There, some coworkers insist I need to be rooted out of this company if this company is to be truly inclusive. while others post axe emojis next to my name. Still, other New York Times employees publicly smear me as a liar and a bigot on Twitter with no fear that harassing me will be met with appropriate action. They never are. There are terms for all of this: unlawful discrimination, hostile work environment, and constructive discharge. I'm no legal expert, but I know that this is wrong. She left the newspaper. She is a liberal. I believe Bari's a lesbian. She's not a conservative, but she is definitely moved to the right because of what these people did at the New York Times. The progressive groupthink at the Times, where she was trying to explore and bring diverse voices, the voices such as my own and others, to the readers of the New York Times. And now she started the Free Press. And it looks like Paramount is buying the Free Press and going to put Bari Weiss in charge of CBS News, a hyper-progressive organization. And literally the CBS News employees are in meltdown today. Some of them suggesting it's like putting Goebbels in charge of the news operation at CBS. These people believe it's their job to tell a narrative, not to get the truth. Putting Bari Weiss in charge of CBS News is a brilliant idea. The meltdown proves it. Now, let me tell you about the Eden Pure Thunderstorm. You can get 3 of them. You can save $200. You can get them for less than $200 at EdenPureDeals.com. EdenPureDeals.com. The discount code is ERIC3, ERICK3. And they're an air purifier, so they get rid of dust, they get rid of pollen, they get rid of pet dander floating in the air. They also kill 99.9% of bacteria and viruses that float through the machine. It generates plasma, touches the bacteria and viruses, wipes them out, and it eliminates odors. It generates ozone. Ozone touches the ionized particulate floating in the air you and I know as odors, and it wipes them out. No odor can stand up to it, and you get 3 of them. You save $200. You get them for less than $200 for your upstairs, your downstairs, your basement, your RV, your travel bag. They're small. You can hold it in your hand, plug it up with a USB cord, plug it into the wall. EdenPureDeals.com. The discount code is ERIC3, ERICK3. Now, tomorrow, Open Line Friday, and I will be back. I had a great time in New York. Thanks for those of you who asked. I forgot how much I enjoy walking around the safe parts of that city, but, man, the amount of homeless people in the streets up there is just sad to see.